I'm Florian Wolf. I'm just an ordinary student of this university. Well, maybe not quite ordinary, as since last October I had the privilege to take up the responsibility of organizing the St.Gallen Symposium with the rest of my team. It allowed me to meet brilliant young people and, of course, brilliant experienced people and travel around India and there meet new cultures. And now come here to this session, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all. As we all know, the workforce and the work situation is changing very rapidly currently, especially with current innovations such as ChatGPT. Of course, we all have heard about it once before, and all other AI products or different innovations such as the RoboDog. For me, myself, I must say, this is a topic that strikes very close to my heart, especially because I have been using, tools that are helping me as well, as I have a dyslexia. And I would say tools have helped me turn this weakness into one of my biggest strengths.
Great.
Which really, therefore, you can imagine how interesting this is to me. And I think we're going to hear a great panel.
Thank you.
And with that, I would like to introduce to you Grandinetti. And he's an expert in innovation technology at the Brown University. And I'm sure he's going to lead the session perfectly.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for making the trek all the way over from the main building. I wasn't sure if we'd have anybody here, but I did know the dog was going to join us, so that I did. So no, we're not here to do a retrospective on the band Kraftwerk. I imagine some of you in the room are very disappointed, right? Dusseldorf-based band created in 1970. And the pioneers of electronic music, right? A genre that has just exploded. And so really, the first band to bring together man and machine. So I thought it would be an appropriate, I tried to get my two panelists, we did a dress rehearsal. We actually got our haircuts like that. We put on red lipstick, we wore red shirts. We just couldn't pull it off, okay? Next year, okay? Next year. But what we're really here to do is we're really here to explore the future of work, okay? And of course, we've been hearing a lot about the future of work since the beginning of the pandemic. And we're going to take it through a couple of different lenses. One lens is a technology-driven hybrid workforce. And here the word hybrid is not work from home or work from the office. Here hybrid is man and machine or woman and machine. Okay? But we're also going to talk about when and where work is done, and how we optimize the location of work for the tasks at hand. Okay, so that's really what we're going to focus on today. And I want to just lead off with a quote that I just believe is so important for all of us to understand. This comes from the great futurist Alvin Toffler. The illiterate of the 21st century are not those that cannot read and write. They are those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And what's important to remember, how many people remember the movie Men in Black? Remember that little white light that they would shine in people's eyes that would cause them to completely forget about the alien intervention? Well, we need one of those. Like Amazon doesn't sell them yet. But if you can get one, I advise you to get one, okay? Because everything, it sounds cliche, but it's not. And over the last 4 months, beginning in mid-November, everything has changed profoundly, okay? And so we need to understand how to live harmoniously with bots, with physical robots, with automation applications, with chatbots. We can't be enemies of the future. There's never been a winning strategy to try to prevent the future from progressing. You cannot do it. And so my background very quickly, Silicon Valley engineer, MBA at Yale, worked at McKinsey out of their New York City corporate headquarters, helped start 8 venture capital-backed technology companies, took 2 public on the NASDAQ, 7 of 8 were acquired by people like Oracle, IBM, and AT&T, okay? About 22 years ago, I was approached by MIT to start teaching entrepreneurship. And I didn't realize how much I would love to teach. Okay, I think it's my life's calling, quite frankly. So I now teach at Harvard, I teach at Brown, I teach in the engineering leadership program at Berkeley, and a number of other institutions. And I have a chance to work with a lot of large clients who are struggling with innovation at scale, struggling with agility, struggling with how do we possibly compete with small, agile companies, not just in tech, but in a whole range of industries, including the auto industry, including health tech, including financial services, okay? And I want to now introduce my two panelists, if you guys would please come up, okay? And first, I think it would have been hard not to notice that we do in fact have a machine in the room, a lovely, is it a pure breed or is it a mutt?
Pure.
Okay, so Peter, would you be kind enough to just introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Peter, co-founder and CEO of Anybotics. We're a Swiss robotics company building four-legged robots, autonomous systems that we use with our customers in complex environments, heavy industries. Imagine complex facilities offshore, oil and gas, chemical industries, mine in sewage systems, etc. And there, the information gathering is a very important piece, and this part, which is done today by humans with their eyes and senses and the brain, we can automate and help our customers run their facilities more safely and more reliably.
Cool, thank you. CVK, if you would be so kind.
Good evening. My name is C. Vijay Kumar. I go by CVK to make it easy for all of you. I'm the CEO of HCL Technologies. HCL Technologies is a $13 billion company with 225,000 people, focused on technology services. So we provide tech services to digitally transform some of the largest companies in the world. So we focus on Global 2000 companies as our clients, and we have operations in 50 countries, 90 different nationalities work for us. We're headquartered out of India. That's
Right.
a little introduction.
All right, thank you guys. Please feel free to take a seat. And so I'm just going to spend a few more minutes setting the context, right? So let's think about man's interaction with machines. Let's go back to the very early days of the Industrial Revolution. The first patent on a steam engine is actually from 1698, okay? And over time, the steam engine, like so many products, matured. It became more powerful, more capable, and it became smaller. And we saw the steam engine applied to steamboats. We saw it applied to steam locomotives, and very, very directly correlated, the steam drill. And you can imagine when they were laying railroad tracks across the 3,000-mile expanse of the US continent, they had to go through a lot of rocky mountains. And how did they do that? Well, it turns out that the beginning of the locomotive age happened just after the passage of the 13th Amendment of the Constitution, which was the abolishment of slavery. And so there were a lot of freedmen, former slaves, whose skill was their muscles. And they were driving steel bits into rock to create crevices where you could put TNT, dynamite, an explosive device, to blow up the rock and then clear the rubble. And one specific freedman was an American man named John Henry. John Henry was immortalized in a song, an American folk song, by the great protest singer Pete Seeger. And John Henry was like so many of us with egos. I'm not going to let the machine beat me. I'm not going to acknowledge that the machine has certain unique strengths that I don't. And so this machine was a steam drill. And the foreman came up to John Henry and said, hey, we're going to use the steam drill. And John Henry's response was, a man ain't nothing but a man, but before I let your steam drill beat me down, I would die with a hammer in my hand. And unfortunately, that was a very true prophecy. He worked so furiously and feverishly to beat the steam drill that his heart exploded and he died, okay? And so if we fast forward to today, man versus machine, when you're playing by the rules of the machine, we are bound to lose. Some of you may remember the great Russian chess champion, Garry Kasparov, losing to Deep Blue, going all the way back to the mid-90s. You may remember, if you know the American game show Jeopardy, that the two legendary most successful Jeopardy players in history lost to IBM Watson. More recently, you may remember that there was a champion, world champion of the Asian strategy game, Go, who was roundly defeated by an algorithm called AlphaGo, which comes from a company called DeepMind, which Google bought in 2014 for $650 million, probably the most advanced AI research lab on the planet. And then poker pros went up against an AI algorithm called Libratus, and Libratus won $20 million playing against these poker pros. So I would think the lesson at this point is quite clear. Do not go into fields where you do not have a competitive advantage, okay? So we have seen all kinds of cultural references to AI. Anybody recognize this image? Anybody in the room? 2001, A Space Odyssey from 1969, and there was a computer known as HAL. It was a sentient general artificial intelligence being who was there in support of the astronauts on this ship called the Discovery. And HAL went rogue, and HAL killed one of the astronauts, okay? And to this day, it remains something that is referenced again and again and again as we talk about what are the perils and pitfalls of AI. Now, there was a much more benevolent perspective on robots just 8 years later. In 1977, we saw the introduction of R2-D2, who was a skilled mechanic on the Starship, and also was a very loyal and brave assistant to Luke Skywalker as the pilot. Okay? And then this guy supposedly spoke 6 million different languages. Now, I don't think any American, I don't care what kind of polyglot you're going to find, is going to get anywhere close to that. And so more recently, some of you may have heard on the news, just about a month ago, a parking structure collapsed in New York City. 125-year-old building. One person was killed, 5 were injured. And the New York City Fire Department rolled out a dog, not all that different. This comes from the company called Boston Dynamics. It cost the New York Fire Department $75,000 for this dog. And of course, they painted it Spot. They named it Spot with its Dalmatian spots. And nobody was concerned that this was something that was used to go into a very dangerous, unstable structure, because it probably saved lives, or at least serious injury, to first responders. Okay? So because of the use case, this was fairly okay. Although when New York City and San Francisco rolled out digi-dogs, right, police dogs, people freaked out. They truly freaked out. So some of you may know Amara's Law. We tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run, but we severely underestimate it in the long run. And let's be very clear. Turing, the Turing test was created in 1950, okay? We have been on a mission to deploy AI for 73 years. Some of you may know the play Waiting for Godot, the Samuel Beckett play. When Godot shows up, everything's going to be good. Well, Godot is here. The AI frontier is here. And if you haven't been spending a lot of time paying attention for the last 5 months, I will tell you, having been in the industry for 30 years, nothing comes close to what we are seeing today. Nothing. And I cannot overstate that. So we are living in a new era. Whether we like it or not, the genie is out of the bottle, and now we have to learn how to adapt, okay? And so the question is this our Promethean moment? Prometheus, for those of you who don't remember your Greek mythology, was the Greek god that gave us fire, okay? And certain inventions have changed the arc of history. Fire would be one, or the steam engine was another one. Electricity was one, nuclear power was one, the World Wide Web was one. And AI is absolutely one. And so what we do not want to be are enemies of the future. That is not a position that pays off, okay? Now, there are many companies that are already saying we will not allow ChatGPT or other generative AI within the 4 walls of our company. That is the wrong approach. I'm not saying that you have to dive into the deep end of the pool and embrace it fully, but if you're not running experiments with it, if you're not beginning to become familiar with it, then you are doing yourself a great disservice, okay? And so now what I want to do is I want to turn to Peter, and I have a series of questions for Peter, because he has been living in this world. He founded his company in 2016, is that right? So you have been on this journey for a while, and you've been studying robotics for 13 years, okay? So, we saw Hal, and Hal is not someone a lot of people feel good about, right? But, you know, societies have taken a dystopian view of AI and robots specifically, right? But there's one society that seems to have embraced robots in a very genuinely enthusiastic way, and that is Japan. So what can we learn from our Japanese friends about robotics and how they've been able to make it work for them in their society?
Yeah. If you look at Japan, they have a very long history of technology, innovation, automation, and also the Asian society. I think that's one of the main demographics, and they're quite aware of it. So
Yeah.
that's what